Wow, what a day in the studio today. Well, welcome back. This is My Day of Play, where you're taken into the real events and actions of how it happens long before the process of editing or cleaning up. This is how it really went. Today we get a little heavy too, dealing with book censorship and racism. But in the end, you'll see them both as amazing positive experiences. I spent time with author Amy King, whose books have been banned from schools, and she sees that as lying to children. Then it's an in-depth conversation with Christine Saxman, a racial justice educator. I call this My Day of Play, completely unedited in the way of meeting the wizard behind the curtain. Hello and good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Collins. This is Brittany calling with the radio tour for Amy King.
Excellent. Looking forward to this.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Looking forward to it.
How am I doing today?
No, I said I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I apologize. I was unable to hear you. I do have one question. When will this air?
Monday morning. The night.
Perfect. I will go ahead and get them. And we are on a tight schedule. I know she has a live interview at 9:40, so we just wanted to dial out just a little early to you.
That's cool.
All right. And just one moment, Madison, our lead, is checking to make sure that they are ready. All right, I'm going to go ahead and connect you now.
Excellent, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And Arrow Collins is joined.
Hello and good morning, Amy. How are you doing today?
Hello, Arrow. I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
Absolutely fantastic. I'm so proud of you for writing this book, and let me tell you the reason why. I'm a daily writer. I've been daily writing for 30 years. I believe that we as authors are given stories by way of our experiences in life. And have you not done that with this? Attack of the Black Rectangles? You've taken something in your life and you've created a story.
I have. It's pretty much what I do with all my books, indeed. But this one, it was really verbatim, right? You know, somebody asked me once, well, why did you use The Devil's Arithmetic by Jane Yolen, as the example of a book, that's censored? And I said, because that's the actual book that was censored, and it was censored the exact same way in my child's classroom. And it was a question I wanted to ask. Like, I still am curious, why those words?
Yeah.
Why those passages? And why would you choose to do that to a book about the Holocaust? There's just so many layers of questions. But yeah, this is exactly what I do. It's what I do pretty much with all my books, Sarah. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Well,
nice to meet you.
Well, I've been waiting to talk with you because I want to talk about that censorship, because even as a podcaster, I do fear that I'm going to say something, or one of my guests is going to say something, but the interpretation is going to be, oh my God, take him down. We've got to close him out.
Well, Arrow, I mean, you've got to remember that most of the letters I get that are unkind about my books, or that say that they should be censored, start with this phrase. I haven't read the book, but. So that's the first part you need to understand about a lot of things. And so a lot of people don't read the books. In fact, most of the book bans you're seeing in America right now are really being instigated by 11 people. So it's sort of, it's really a sort of more of a fervor of doing what you're told versus actual intellectual decision making, right? And so, even Attack of the Black Rectangles, it's been out for 2 years now. This week is its paperback release, but it's already been censored and it's already been banned. And so it's sort of, and there's no curse words in it. There's nothing. It's a middle grade book that's wholesome and lovely, but it's about censorship. And so right there, it's been banned for that reason. And it's about kids who go and fight censorship and use their voices to be able to say, whoa. I want to be able to read this book, and the words you crossed out, we already knew those, and why would you cross them out?
Wow.
And they had more questions, because they're children, they're curious. We're so used to lying to children, and in a way, in this book, it also talks about the other black rectangles we put on our lives. Like there's Mac. He's got a really abusive, erratic dad. And people put a black rectangle over that all the time, make excuses for the guy, say he has some mental problems, whatever it is. It's just like, no, actually, the guy treats his kid terribly. Like, can we just talk about the truth for once with young people? Because they already know it.
That's like trying to teach a kid that it's okay to lose. You didn't win the baseball game. Yeah. You didn't get the trophy. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to work harder next year. I mean, yeah, because we all just want to be, use your words, be positive, be positive. But see, what I love about your book is that I recently spent some time with Martin Luther King Jr.'s granddaughter, and she's all about activating the voice. And is that not what this book is about as well? Give those people who are hiders, who are dreamers, an opportunity to be and have a different view.
I did not hear the last thing that you said because our connection is somehow funky.
It's because I'm living in a forest. No, what I'm saying is that this book gives people a reason to believe in different views. Yes, and that's exactly it. And we have to. I once got onto a radio show and someone said, let's just cut to the chase. Which books do you think should be banned? Oh, God.
And I said, no books. And she was like, come on, you're either on this side or this side. I'm like, no, there is no side. I'm on the side of books, and that's all books. And they're like, and then she threw out like this one really like, she actually threw out Mein Kampf. And I said, oh my gosh. I don't think she ever expected anyone to be so excited to defend this book. But I said, listen, I grew up in rural Pennsylvania surrounded by hate groups. I have lumps on my head from hate groups. All I've ever wanted to know is the answer to hate. That book is the key to the lock. And is it disgusting? Yes. Does it gross me out? Unbelievably. But so did getting beaten up by skinheads. I can at least understand where it came from if I read it. The whole idea is to read differing views to figure out who the heck you are. Yeah. I read books I didn't like. I read books I didn't agree with. I read characters I'm like, I don't want to be like that person. In fact, half the influences in my life that made me who I am were meeting people that I didn't want to be anything like.
Wow.
Right? And so you meet those people. You can't avoid those people. I was born into a family with a few of those people. And I was like, I don't want to be like them. I'm going to be like this. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to do these things. And that's how I became who I am, was to be able to look at the things I didn't like, the things that hurt my feelings, the things that made me uncomfortable, and decide to be who I am. And as a young person, I made those decisions very young.
Well, and doesn't that start with you as the author? Because I know there are times in my own published books that I would go into a paragraph and I'm going, that they're not gonna see it the way you do. You might want to pull back on that. In fact, my very first published book, before the editor, before they were saying, okay, let's do it, I went in there and eliminated every single dirty word. And if it sounded like a dirty word, if it looked like a dirty word, because I didn't want to come across that I was breaking the rules.
Arrow, the same thing happened again. You got so excited, and for some reason your voice went to space. I did not hear the last part of that.
In other words, did you hear the part about my book, where it was like I took out all the dirty words or something that looked like a dirty word because I did not want to be banned from oh, look, he's using foul language in this book of motivation.
Oh, yeah. No, you can't do that. No, I write, it's funny. How do I put this? I've been writing for 30 years. I still got to have other jobs to pay my bills. It's not to say that writing doesn't pay me. It does. But it's not one of those things that people think that it's fame and fortune. It's not. What it is a beautiful art that I love being able to do. I feel very fortunate to do it. But when I do it, I sure as heck don't lie to children. If somebody says the F word, somebody says the F word. Yeah. Now, for a kid, for this group, for middle graders, no, nobody says the F word there, although guess what? They do. That's where we all learned it. We all learned it in those ages. But a book with that is not going to fly. And that's cool. But I write mostly, my books are adult, young adult, and adult books. They're crossover books. So like I have a book coming out in 3 weeks. I didn't hold back at all. Heck no. Why would I hold back? I don't lie to children. I don't lie to children, and I don't misrepresent the world and life as it is to children. I don't. I mean, if they're watching television, I haven't watched TV in like 35 years, but I turned it on recently and I saw some of the stuff and I was like, I can't understand why we're censoring books. Like, well, like the television is bad enough. So it's so interesting. But what it is, it's a control technique. And that's what this is. It's a control technique, and it's really, honestly, it's based in homophobic, transphobic, and racist, white supremacist ideas. That's really what book censorship is at the moment in this country. And it's sad because no one's really just saying that. But again, I don't lie to children, and it's just something I don't do.
For listeners, can we define what a banned or a censored book is? Does that mean that no child can even bring it in their book bag?
No. Well, at the moment, what we talk about when we say banned books, and it's so interesting because I know several people who come from countries where they have, and I actually lived in Ireland for a while, where they banned certain books. Literally, naturally, you could not actually buy certain copies of certain books. Here we're talking about specifically access to books in school libraries.
Okay.
And I want to talk about why that's important, okay? Now, I worked on boards in public libraries, and I, in fact, sat on challenges in public libraries and shocked my other board members by saying, no, you can't censor that book. It disgusted me. Don't you worry. I was grossed right out by the racism in this one local publication, but I said, you can't ban it. It's just a slippery slope. If we say yes to this, we're going to say yes to the next thing. But anyway, when it comes to accessing books in schools, that is the only place most children can access books. I did not have a public library. I grew up in the middle of a cornfield in Pennsylvania. I didn't have a public library within 20, 25 minutes from my house.
Wow.
My parents were working very hard. I was never going to get there. The school library is the place that kids can access books. That's where they can go and look for the mirrors and windows and the things so that they can look in and go, oh, gosh, that's what it's like to be disabled, perhaps. That's what it's like to be deaf. That's what it's like to be. So there's a nice window into what other people experience, but they can also find books that reflect themselves, and that's so important. I have the one that changed my life in 8th grade, sitting right next to me here. It was a Paul Zindel book, and it was because I could see myself. And it's weird. I read it now, and like, really, there's nothing in it about, there's no teenage girls in it, there's nothing. But it was just a vibe that I was like, oh, gosh, I feel seen. And to feel seen is really important. So when we're removing specific books, and that's one of the problems with this rise right now in book banning, there are specific books on these lists. There are targeted groups of people. And so LGBTQ kids, they're out. No, none of those. It's like, look, you can't get rid of the people by getting rid of their books. All you can do is make them sadder. Why would you do that? But more importantly, this most recent ban, like this most recent push, has been incredibly racist. I mean, just locally, they banned those the little chapter books about who is this person, who is that person. They banned who is Martin Luther King Jr. They banned who is Sonia Sotomayor.
Yeah.
So when I look at things like that, what we're just trying to eradicate history. It really is based in the ideas of that I don't agree with. And you know what? That I have ideas they don't agree with. But the bottom line is this. It goes down to the golden rule. I can't tell you what to read, and you can't tell me what to read. And I can't tell you what your kids can read, and you can't tell me what my kids can read. And therefore, that's why we have professionals called librarians and educators.
Wow.
And educators are incredibly educated in what they do. And librarians are incredibly educated in what they do. There are people who teach the science of reading. And the science of young people reading is fascinating. But most of us don't know it. And those people sitting on those school boards don't know it.
Yep.
And that's a shame. These people have spent their whole lives, truly researching how young minds take in information, and we're like, we don't care. I don't like this book. That's not how it works. It's not how it should work. Not in a country like this, or the Constitution that absolutely protects our right to read and a right to access information at every age.
Wow. Amy, you've got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Holy crow. Invite me, Arrow. Invite me.
I will. I will.
Find me on the internet.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, Arrow, and you go have an incredible weekend.
Thank you. Please don't move. We're going to come right back. Hello and good morning, everybody.
Good morning. This is Christine.
Christine, listen to that beautiful voice. Oh, my goodness sakes.
Thank you. It's a little congested. I unfortunately have COVID.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Man. You got to talk to me about this book because you come with so much cred. You've got so much experience. And you know what? Those of us on the outside here, we've got assumption. You know what I mean? We just sit here and we think we've got this, but we don't have what you've got.
Well, thank you so much.
To gain the confidence to put a book out there inside stores, it's going to create conversations. How do you maneuver your way through this? Because people are going to look at this cover and they're going to judge it immediately, which is rule number 1. Don't judge a book by its cover.
Well, honestly, we wanted to help people feel comfortable actually talking about it. So we did kind of want to push the conversation a little bit with our cover and with our title, Being White Today. Actually, we wanted to push it a little bit further. We originally wanted it to be It's Okay to Be White, picking up on the white nationalist flyers that prompted the book. And that was going a little too far. It was making folks a little too uncomfortable. But we really wanted to not have white nationalists be the ones to own the conversation of what it means to be white. We wanted anti-racist folks and folks who care about fighting racism to help other white folks who feel uncomfortable to get the skills and realize it's not as scary as it might seem. And it's not just white nationalists who are the ones who talk about being white.
You know, one of the things that you cover inside this book, and I mean, it's a door opener. Why bother to help if they hate you anyway? Let's talk about that. Why bother to help? I mean, we see this every day.
Well, and that's one of the things that's one of those messages that I think the far right and the white nationalists manipulate really well, which is this idea that it's all divisive and, you know, it's hard to cross racial boundaries. And so you might as well not bother. And that's buying into either or thinking. And that's one of the messages in the book that we really push is let's not fall for that. It really is both and we can really understand ways to work towards a healthy multiracial democracy. And we have lots of models for it already. We just don't talk about them enough. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're trying to uplift in the book.
Do you think that's the reason why social media and journalists will kind of push that envelope? It's like they're trying to hide behind something, or is it they're pushing too much on it and we get our own beliefs?
Well, I think in a lot of ways that's the easier story. Mm-hmm. And it's the one that activates us more. So it's easy to feel kind of a righteousness around the divide. And it's hard to talk about nuance. And so that's part of what we're trying to do is ask people to slow down. And social media isn't a slow down place. Social media is a click and engage, a click and engage, a click and engage. And we're asking folks to let's slow down and have more of a nuanced and over a cup of coffee kind of conversation.
The scenarios that you put inside this book, did you go camp out at a Starbucks and just sit there and watch life? And it's like, oh, we're writing about that. Oh, my God, here's another story. Here's another story. I mean, it's all around us.
Yes. So a lot of it comes from our own interactions. In our 20 plus years in doing this work as white folks, a lot of it comes from stories that people have shared with us. So even though they're fictionalized in the book, they all are based on either real stories that Shelley and I have experienced ourselves or that people have shared with us. So we really wanted them to be practical experiences so that they felt real, that there are things that white people are struggling with, so that when they read it, people can see themselves and be like, oh, yes, I deal with this in my church. I deal with this in my school. I deal with this in my neighborhood.
You were talking about white nationalists, and one of the things that you bring up in one of the messages is that anti-racism is anti-white.
Yes, and that's a message that they've been pushing really, really well. And, it's kind of building on the same piece of, the way that the strategy they came with anti-critical race theory, anti-DEI, that's all tied into, anti-racism is anti-white. And they've been really effective with it. That's why there's been legislation in certain states. And we really want to push back against that and think about the ways in which this isn't anti-white. This isn't anti-white people. In fact, doing anti-racism is a way for us to be healthier, hence the title of the book. We can have a positive identity as white people when we really work cross-racially, because we're actually working to make society better as a whole.
One of the things that I always try to share with people, if you want to see different points of view and learn what other people are thinking and doing in their lives, go get a job at a grocery store and get involved with your community at that level, because everybody has to go to the watering hole.
That's right. And that's one of the things that we offer is really trying to engage differently and engage in ways with folks that really help you build different skill muscles. We talk about different skills like emotional skills, conversational skills. There's all different kinds of skills that we can build to really just be better in our cross-racial relationships.
So when it comes to disarming tactics, what does that actually require? Because I'm a person that likes activation. I'll sit here and use a yellow highlighter all the way through this book. But if it's just going to sit there, then I didn't do it right. I need to activate the word.
Yes. And so Activation can take place in lots of different ways. And so when we talk about working with, say it's white person to white person, and you're trying to understand someone who is just like, I don't want to talk about race, I don't want to do this.
Yep.
Engaging them is just to understand, first of all, okay, so why? Rather than arguing with them, well, you should care about race, and, giving them a laundry list of ideas, just pause and be curious. So that's an activation right there, is learning questioning skills and learning listening skills to just sit and be with that person and understand their perspective, because once you understand their perspective, then you can connect. So listen, connect, and then you can pivot to sharing some reasons about why you have the beliefs that you have.
One of the things that we all should work on is stop stereotyping, because just because they may be African American doesn't mean they like hip hop music and jazz. I tell you what, that's an eye opener as a mobile DJ when it's like, you want to hear Dave Matthews? That's awesome. That's really awesome. See, I just learned something by going through that experience.
That's absolutely right. We should always start from the position of curiosity rather than making assumptions.
Yeah. What did you learn by doing this? Because you bared your soul inside this book. That means that you had to take your experiences, put it on a page, and now your body's going, okay, give me more.
Yes, I think that the greatest piece of this has just been how open people have been, of all different racial and ethnic identities, to using the tools and working within their communities to really build relationships. And that has been our goal all along, is to really think about how do we build relationships to work towards the place that we're not there yet. And we have the hope that we'll be in a society that doesn't have racism anymore. And it's been worth putting our, not always best selves out there. But that's the point of, we're going to make mistakes along the road. And Shelley and I both have made mistakes during this process, and we can recover from them. That's skill building.
Is it okay to think beyond black and white here? Because I do work at that grocery store, and I know who's going to come into my store after 9 p.m. at night. Some of the most hardworking people on this planet. And of course, I'm talking about immigrants and people who are legally Americans. But I learned from this book because I want to build that conversation. I want to build that connection with them, and I want to learn how it is they're so dedicated and loyal.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important conversation to talk about too, because it's often framed, again, as an either or. Like when we're talking about race, it's either white people or black people. And we're talking about Asian Americans. We're talking about Mexican Americans. We're talking about lots of different immigrant folks from the Middle East. So we're really need to think about how we're talking about race and ethnicity, and really thinking about what does multiracial mean, and that we're really building bridges in lots of different directions, and really widening our view in that way as well.
Isn't it kind of weird, though, as we were growing up, multiracial, it was one of those things I would look at my mom and I'd say, so what do I have in me? Well, you're Norwegian, you've got some Native American in you. I mean, we all had a piece of something in each and every one of us. Why is it was not an issue back then, but it's an issue today?
Well, I think sometimes it was an issue back then, but maybe we just didn't see it and talk about it. Okay. And, and that's part of going back and thinking about maybe what we weren't able to see. I think about in my own story, when I lived in Baltimore, there were lots of racial issues there. And yet my parents taught me to be colorblind, and I didn't see it at the time. But now when I go back and look, there was lots there to see. I just wasn't able to see it.
Wow. Where can people go to find out more information about you, Christine? And I want them to really dig in and see that this is not a book of negativity. This is a book of learning and a better understanding of how we can grow forward as a unity.
Yes, it is very much about having a positive anti-racist life. So thank you for uplifting that. And please visit beingwhitetoday.com to learn more about the book. And please pick up the book wherever you buy either paperbacks or audiobooks. We would love to engage with you.
You got to come back to this show anytime in the future. This platform is always going to be open for you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you get better, okay?
Thank you so much.